Welcome to the Entrepreneurial CEO Podcast, where we dive into the real stories behind building and scaling a business. Each episode, we sit down with CEOs, founders, and leaders to uncover hard-won lessons in leadership, systems, and team building. Listen in each week to learn directly from real business leaders who have been in your shoes, had success, made the mistakes, and all of the messiness that comes with building a business. If you're ready to learn from real-world leaders and gain insights you can apply today, you're in the right place. So let's get started. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Nick, thanks so much for being here. Caito, good to see you again.
Same here. Thanks for having me.
All right. Everybody, today's guest is Nick Leja, serial entrepreneur, investor, author, and founder of Disc Replay, the fast-growing buy-sell trade video game and electronics chain. Nick got to start selling Subway sandwiches in high school, then parlayed that hustle into opening his first Disc Replay location right after college. Since then, Nick has built an impressive portfolio spanning resale apparel, salon suites, fence installation, waxing studios. I want to hear how these are all connected. I'm not seeing the thread, but I would love to learn more from Nick. He's got a lot going on. 800 employees, over 800 employees, 50 million in annual revenue across these industries. It's very, very impressive. Nick has been named to D-Business's 30 in their 30s and Crane Detroit's 40 under 40, and even writes management fables like The Dark Fairy to share hard-won leadership lessons. So Nick, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. We really appreciate it. Excited to dive in.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
Before we start firing into questions, as we always do, maybe just if you have any additional information about yourself or your businesses for the audience.
Well, a quick point of clarification. So I'm not the original founder of Disc Replay. I currently do own the brand, but actually the founder was my business mentor. So straight out of college, I got very lucky to come across him. So he definitely put in the blood, sweat, and tears to create the brand Disc Replay. So I want to make sure that I don't get any credit for that. And then kind of coming full circle with my business mentor, he chose me to sell the business to last year. So I kind of am taking the reins now to continue his legacy. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't take any undue credit with that. But no, you gave me a very good, background. So I appreciate that. I don't have anything to add at this point. So we can dive right in.
Cool. All right. So it sounds like, you got started early as an entrepreneur. Was that always the path? Like, was that always, I think we've talked to some business owners and they're like, yeah, I never considered having a 9-to-5 job. It just wasn't in my DNA. Is that you? Where like, you're just like, no, I'm going to have my own business.
So it's funny. What got me started on this was my dad. He gave me the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki when I think it was in my later years of middle school, like the first year of high school. I forget exactly when. But I read that book. I got obsessed with the cash flow quadrant. And I'm like, I want to make it to the, we start as an employee, then I go to self-employed, then a B-type business owner, then an investor. And I'm like, I want to be in the investor quadrant. So that really kind of was like, okay, there's another path than the typical path. And this is the one for me. So that's what got me started in the entrepreneurial journey. And my biggest passion is writing. That's like my biggest superpower. It's my happy place. I love to do it. I'm very creative, but making money as a creative author is challenging. So my original goal coming out of college was I wanted to build a portfolio of businesses to give me a passive revenue stream so then I could focus all of my time and attention in writing without having to worry about the pressure of actually making money. So that's kind of what got me started in entrepreneurship, and then why I pursued it so passionately. It was the end game was the writing.
I like that. Your why. You've got a purpose, right?
Yep.
And so now, how is that going now? Are you able to carve out time for the writing?
Yeah, I had a pretty big paradigm shift about 3 years ago when I got a little bit too caught in the chase of just building for the sake of building. Kind of lost the why. I had a business setback and a bit of a shift into wait, what am I doing this for? So about 3 years ago, I got back into writing, and I am getting ready next month to publish my fourth book. I'm writing a series of short stories that teach soft skills. So I am definitely able to focus on the writing, which feels nice.
That's awesome. So the Disc Replay was out of college, which I imagine, I don't know. I know when I came out of college, I knew almost nothing. So that must have been challenging. What was any big lessons that came out of that, or like early missteps? Like, how did that go?
Oh man, the lessons and the missteps. I could go on for hours and hours. Well, for me, so I realized that I realized how difficult business ownership is and how many mistakes there are out there. And it's just like a minefield of just mistakes and missteps to take. So I became a franchise consultant because I'm like, well, I don't want to, my ultimate goal is writing. Some people, they're just, hey, I want to create a concept. I want to create a company that's all my idea and grow with it. That was not me. I'm like, I just want the path of least resistance to get a sustainable portfolio of businesses to make money so that I can focus on writing. So I thought to look to the franchise world. So where somebody else smarter than me came up with the system and kind of figured things out. And that's where I met John, who's the original founder of Disc Replay. I'm a huge video game nerd myself. So I love the product lines. This was in 2008, 2009. So during the Great Recession, when a lot of businesses were struggling, but Disc Replays were doing great because we pay cash for stuff. So people who were struggling to pay their bills, they can sell to us, and we offered more money than the competition. We also sold things for less. So it really fit with what was happening in the economy, plus my personal passions. And I just got very lucky that John was an amazing business mentor. So when I went into it, I put my ego aside and I'm just like, I'm going to learn. And any challenges that I came across, I would refer to John or even other Disc Replay franchisees to learn how. A big lesson that I learned there is who, not how. So rather than trying to figure out how to do something or how to run a business or how to make a hiring decision or how to do whatever, I tried to find out who already knew that, and then I asked them how to do that. Then I just learned from their successes. So that was a big, I guess, learning opportunity when I first started off, and it helped me grow very quickly.
How old were you at this point, Nick?
When we opened Disc Replay, I was 22 in July of 2009. Yep.
That's great.
Yeah,
love these stories. I love that.
Yeah.
I know when we opened our first company, Restaurants on the Run, my two partners were 21.
Okay.
And I was 24. And so it's like,
it's a wild time.
Wild time, anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun though, looking back at it. Like, man, a lot of mistakes, but a lot of good decisions too. So it was fun.
Exactly. Got to go through the war.
Yeah. That's how you learn, right? Those scars.
Yep.
We talk about this on the show, like, at different stages of the business, different size, you have to learn different things. You almost have to like become a different leader. How has that changed for you? Have you noticed anything significant, or like, now you're at hundreds of employees, 50 million in revenue, 6 businesses, or, how has that changed for you, your leadership and what you need to do as the CEO?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So when I started, it was one Disc Replay, one brick and mortar store with maybe 8 employees in Flint, Michigan, right? Pretty humble beginnings. And at that point, a lot of it was learning the business, right? Learning how to evaluate video games and movies. And should we start buying in these things called iPads, or should we not buy those? And then what about trading cards? And it was all about the products and the customer service. And that's what I had to get really, really good at, is like the actual specifics of the product that we're offering to the community, how that differed from our competition, what's the competition doing, staying on top of that, et cetera. So that was for one store. My second store was a Plato's Closet, which is another retail store that buys and sells clothes and accessories for teens and young adults. So still in the secondhand industry, but kind of diversifying the product lines a little bit. And in 2 stores, I could still do that, right? I could still learn how do we buy and sell t-shirts appropriately at Plato's, and how do we buy and sell video games. But a lot of it was like product focused. But then as I got a 3rd Disc Replay and a 4th Disc Replay and a 5th Disc Replay, I can only be in so many places at once. And it really changed. And to the point where I'm at now, whereas now, as I look at businesses, I launched a fence company last year. I have no idea how to install a fence. I have no idea how to buy cedar for fences, or like what the supply and demand. Like, I know nothing about that. Whereas Disc Replay and Plato's, I knew every single thing. I could do every job in the company very, very well. But with the fence company now, I just don't have the time to do that. So really what a business is, as the scale comes up, is we're harnessing and directing human energy is really what it is, regardless of what the product or service is. So kind of like how has my time shifted? Now it is like, I feel like, I'm not going to say I'm a master, but I'm definitely fine-tuning my abilities to harness and direct human energy potential, essentially. And whatever product we're selling or service we're selling, it's irrelevant. Like, my work spent with the fence company or the retail brands or the wax company, like, it doesn't really change. At the end of the day, it's okay, we got to put the right people in the right seats with the right incentives. What's the accountability chart look like? And do we have a handful of KPIs? That's not too many KPIs. Are we looking at them on a weekly basis? And how are we analyzing people, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, I could go on and on, but like, those are the discussions that I'm having, the decisions that I'm making, that are pretty much agnostic of whatever the brand itself is actually doing at this point.
I think that's awesome. I mean, number one, the way you talk about like the putting people in and the energy and moving those people, but it's also just the system, right? You've brought this down. Sounds like you've boiled this down to a system. The metrics, the process, the accountability, the hiring, retaining, all those different things. So it's industry agnostic, whether it's go ahead.
Yeah. And that's like what business ownership is. And from my experience, I should say, at scale, it's no longer about the products. It's no longer about the service, really. It's just about, it's that system of harnessing human energy potential. And that's like, when I realized that, it was like, whoa, because then it was like the sky's the limit. Like I was very nervous about launching into the fence company because everything else I had was retail. And again, I knew how to do every single job in that. And I'm just like, I just don't have the time to be a fence installer. I don't want to be a fence installer. But then once I realized that, like, I don't need to know that. I just need to know how to like harness human energy potential. And then when I applied that map to it, like, we had a great first year. We're crushing it the second year. Once that shift happens in the mind is like, hey, somebody, whether it's the owner, and maybe it's not always the owner, but somebody in the company needs to know how to like really harness that human energy potential, which is extremely difficult. It's very easy to talk about KPIs and accountability charts and right people, right seats and all these other buzzwords, but then actually doing it, actually having those difficult conversations, actually having the emotional intelligence and combined with the logic and knowing how to make these people decisions, it's it's a very challenging skill to master. It's easy to understand the concept of, but a challenging skill to master. And I feel like when I see some of my peers who get too caught up in the products that they're selling or the services they're selling, and it's almost like managing the human energy is an afterthought. Like, okay, I got to get these people to do these things, but at the end of the day, like, I love the product we're doing, and that's where it kind of like people can trip over themselves, is because without getting everybody rowing in the same direction, happily rowing in the same direction, it's hard to achieve anything beyond what you can do in however many hours you put to work. So,
okay, first of all, I think this is fascinating, the way you kind of outlined, especially the harness and direct human capital, and you got right people, incentives, the accountability chart, which I love, the right KPIs. But then you said something super important, not too many. Most entrepreneurs fall down on that aspect. Here's my question for you. With multiple businesses, you have a playbook to do that, which I love. Are you able to, with multiple businesses and having used that playbook, are you able to, like, how big can you push one of those companies? Meaning, like if you're just running one company, you may have this huge BHAG and you're like in it, and you're like, we're changing the world. Can you have that mentality with multiple businesses where you have a team in place on each one?
I think so, but to be honest, I guess it would be too early for me to say definitively because we haven't achieved it yet. But now we do have, like, we have two, like, we run our business on EOS and we have a VTO. So we do have a 10-year BHAG for our retail brands and for the fence brands. And we came up with that about 6 months ago. So so I'm operating under the thesis that yes, you can, as long as you understand how to like harness the human energy within those brands. I haven't achieved it yet, so I guess TBD, but we are moving towards it though. And I firmly believe you can.
I'm curious, what led you into fencing? That seems very left field.
So I read a lot from Warren Buffett, and I read like all of his letters to the shareholders. So kind of like his investing philosophy is really like imprinted in my brain. And I never spoke with him directly, but like based on all my reading from him, I've read just so many books about him and his writings. He just looks for simple, boring businesses that are easy to understand, that stand the test of time. So I'm not looking to get into like cryptocurrency type things just because it's changing. Even AI, like AI is all the rave right now. And I'm sure a lot of companies are making a lot of wealth with that, but the competition is just insane. I'm assuming I'm not even in that industry. So with fencing, it's like, well, a wooden fence is a wooden fence, right? I mean, like if you look at what a fence looks like 30 years ago versus today versus what a fence will likely look like in 30 years from the future, it's probably not going to change that much. It's pretty simple. It's not flashy. It's not in the news. Like, hey, this new industry called fencing is now the latest craze, and a bunch of competition rush in, So it checked all those boxes. And then again, this is with the franchise and with Superior Fence and Rail. They're like the number one fencing company in the country. So just being with a good brand who, like the founder there, Zach, is a great guy and just has good ethics, good values, and not trying to take over the world, but just provide really good services for people. So just kind of checked all those boxes. But the big thing was just, I like boring businesses that are simple, unchanged, easy to predict. And, I'm not saying it's easy to run, but just to understand, right? Like if I say, hey, we sell wooden fences, probably everybody listening to this understands what I'm doing. But some other companies, you could say what you do and it's like, wait, what exactly do you do? And that's just not for me.
And franchises.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And franchises. That's really so spread across all those different businesses. What does your prioritization system look like? How do you prioritize across all those businesses and the different things that need your attention? How do you decide where to focus on the day to day?
So about a year ago, we kind of tripled in scale, which created a lot of problems for me because I was being in too many places at once. And a lot of the systems that I had or the way that I managed my time a year ago wasn't working and things were falling down and falling through the wayside. Since then, we hired an implementer to help us, implement EOS into our organization. And so my answer now is we just have an accountability chart for each brand. So with the Disc Replay and the Plato's Closets, we're just calling that our retail brand. And I have one integrator who is basically like my CEO, if you will, over that brand. So he's the point person. He's running the show with that. Right now, I am spending my time getting the same thing set up with the fencing company because we've got several territories. We're looking to get another one. So I'm going to get the same thing. I'm going to get a top guy there called an integrator we're calling that the home services division. So I've kind of have grouped my companies in different divisions right now, retail and home services. And then we're just going to have a leader and integrator in both of them. And we'll just be running this entrepreneurial operating system in both. And then as far as where I manage my time, it's going to be more in the visionary seat. I'm like, what's next? What's the next expansion opportunity?
Yeah.
And my writing, of course. That's why I'm doing all this. So,
well, hey, if you have the system in place and the process in place and it can free your time to do that, that's amazing, right? I think a lot of entrepreneurs that we talk to, they don't yet, when they come to us, they don't yet have this system for that. So that's their challenge, right? They can't go on vacation. They don't have time for writing and they want it. They need it.
It really is life-changing. It's like understanding how to organize all the human energy flows and the likes and the dislikes, things like that is completely life-changing. And it's like, I feel like a lot of people, when they get into business ownership, they get really focused on whatever the product that they're selling is or the service. Like if someone starts a fence company, they're obsessed with fences. They know everything about fences. But like, again, that skill set of knowing how to do whatever your business is doing and then just how to organize all the human beings within your business, it's like a completely different thing. It would be like someone getting like an accounting degree and then trying to be like an actor with without any other like training or where it's a completely different skill set. So and the business owner rises to the top organically by default just because they're the founder. But I think just recognizing that like, hey, like as the business owner, maybe the best spot on the accountability chart is like 3, 4, 5 levels down, right? Like if a business owner is the tinkerer or the programmer or like the software developer, maybe you just want to be slinging code every day and you don't want to be managing a team that's slinging code. And I think having the self-awareness to know that, hey, as a business owner, I'm going to hire somebody who's my boss, so to speak, because they're better at managing people. But then I get to like sling code every day. And that's what I love to do. Like knowing that like you can achieve a lot more and provide a lot more value by staying in like whatever your unique ability is, right? Mm-hmm. Which for a lot of people might not be managing people.
Hi, if you're a CEO out there who's struggling with focus for your company, aligning your team, accountability, if you're struggling with execution, connecting the dots from where you're at to where you want to be, we've got a great program for you here at MAP. My name is Michael Caito. I'm the CEO. Most importantly, I was a client for 15 years, sold my company to a public company, and then bought MAP so that we can help other entrepreneurs with this specific problem. We're a 60-year-old company. We've worked with 170,000 individual executives and CEOs. We've worked with 15,000 organizations. This is what we do. Click the link below to learn a little bit more about how people just like you, CEOs, have transformed their business and ultimately transformed their life by running through the MAP system.
And it's not managing people, it's not process, it's not detail. You're right. Everybody's different. I think that self-awareness is super important.
Yeah.
So you can get everybody, you said it, rowing in the same direction, but also happily, right?
Yep.
Having that positive culture where everybody enjoys going to work and they're productive. That's how you get an efficient organization that produces.
Yeah. I feel like there's two key roles at the top. There's the vision, the person coming with the vision, right? Who's growing the company, evolving the company. So using the fencing thing, like who's just super into fencing, wants to find all these new cool things to do in the fencing thing. And then there's the person that's organizing the team and keeping the team rowing in the same direction, right? So one person's picking the island to sail to, but then you got to have somebody else who's the captain of the ship getting everybody actually to that island, or giving you a reality check and saying, hey, I think that might be impossible. Let's talk a little bit, right? Where our dreams kind of meet reality a little bit. Let's just get aligned. That combination, those two people, I just feel like is kind of where the magic happens when you have both of those people.
Was it challenging to find that person in these companies? Like, did you have any setbacks and,
I got a little lucky. So the integrator that we hired, his name is Eric, and he just happens to be the brother of one of my business partners, Jesse, and he was an integrator in a different company. So I got very lucky with that. So I didn't have to search that far. But if I didn't get lucky, then yes, I've heard different stories that it takes a lot to find a really good counterpart that kind of jives with the visionary's personality and quirks and things like that. Like you need someone who can take all that dreaming and bring it into reality. So I've heard it's very challenging, but I personally haven't gone through the bumps and bruises with that.
Either bring it into reality or tell them no. I'll tell you that, like with my business partner, he was more the visionary guy. I was the integrator, and I, was the day-to-day execution guy. And like, I had to tell him no all the time because you can't just be changing course every 5 minutes.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But it is difficult to find that partnership that works well. It's like a marriage. Yep. I used to tell him, like, dude, I spend more time with you than I do with my wife. Like we're together all the time. So you have to work super well together and have complementary, skills.
Well, there used to be such big trust because, like, in the EOS world, so they're called the visionary and the integrators, where those two people are. And one of the 5 rules between the two is the integrator breaks all ties. So the visionary has to be comfortable with that. Like, hey, this person actually, like, if I want to do something and they're saying no, like the integrator trumps the visionary, which is a tough pill to swallow for some people. But it's powerful though when you find that team and you can actually trust the person, because the integrator at the end of the day kind of knows what it's going to take to make that a reality. And it's somewhat easy to dream these big things, but then like actually doing it is a very different story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. And so, like, I think you brought up, Andrew, I think you brought up a good point. And so, what I always wonder about is when people are, like you said, it can be hard to find the right integrator. And when you have a smaller business that's, under a couple $1 million or 3 million or 4 million or 5 million, you may not have the capital to really hire that person. And I train a lot of accelerators because I'm an EO as well. And I see the accelerators say, I've got to get my integrator. And I'm like, you have a $350,000 business in revenue. An integrator is not I've never seen anything for under 150 that can actually do the job. And so I struggle when I hear that with people because, you can't afford it. And so then you end up hiring somebody that you think is an integrator. They're not an integrator. They're not going to tell you no.
Right.
And you actually can't do what you want to do as the visionary, which is let them organize the business and run it. Not to mention, have they been trained? And I see it constantly. And I feel like it's a disservice to these small companies that they're saying, I want an integrator, and they've got 500,000 in revenue.
Yep.
It's not like, so you got to get to a certain point where you can really hire this COO, so to speak, that can organize a business.
Yep. Very good point. That's very true.
What do you think that threshold is? What do you think that point is when it's more appropriate? 1 million, 2 million, 5 million?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, I didn't have one for the first 15 years, and then we just hired one last year. And at that point, we were a little, I mean, I think it's so tough to say without knowing margins and stuff. If I had to just throw a number out there, like, I don't know, maybe getting close to 10 million, really, I mean, to your point though, I think to really get a really good integrator though, it's at least 150K plus. So like you need to be able to do that and like still be able to make payroll and kind of hire the other roles and stuff like that. Also, like I would challenge, I guess, if a business does only have like 100, 200, 300,000 in revenue, my guess is probably there's not quite the complexity to warrant the need for that. Because, right, like at the end of the day, what is an integrator doing? They're managing human energy potential. If you have 10 employees, there's just a lot less complication that you need a power horse to come in and orchestrate compared to if you just had like, or compared to if you had like 100, 200, 300, 400 employees, like, so as the scale, the demand gets a lot higher for that type of role. But like, so if someone is a very big visionary, like we do a lot of Colby indexes. So there's like, someone could be a high quick start, which means they got a bunch of ideas, but if they're really low on fact finding and follow through, which is kind of more integrator type of qualities, the answer doesn't mean, okay, I got to go hire a $150,000 integrator. It's just hire somebody or have somebody who you talk to or on your leadership team who kind of has those strengths where you don't. So if you're not a structured person, hire somebody who has that skill set, who knows how to manage people, who has that structure, who's good at kind of asking questions and following through. So then you can be the idea guy and just be like, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? But just a thought partner to kind of kind of counteract with that. And for me, part of that was one of my business partners, actually between the two of us, he's kind of more the visionary, constantly talking about new ideas. And I'm just like, no, but just somebody, even it could be a significant other, it could be a whatever, but just find that balance somehow. It's not like it's nothing or a full blown integrator. There's a lot of in between.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
So you've got, a significant scale to your business now. What remains a big bottleneck that still comes across your desk, and what do you do about that?
Biggest bottleneck right now is just all the things that I have to say yes to. So like my name's on like bank accounts and all these different agreements with all these different vendors and like Comcast, like internet vendors and just crazy things. So it's just been kind of unwinding a lot of that and like adding the proper authorizations, which is kind of like a small thing, but not much. Yeah. I still need to hire somebody to manage my inbox. I still haven't quite done that yet. But I honestly don't get a whole lot anymore at this point.
So you've delegated a lot of the larger items to your team.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And you talk about, I think, hiring overqualified talent. Where have you seen a mismatch between skills and execution or accountability? And how do you bridge that? Making sure that these people actually can execute and then you can hold them accountable.
So if I hire somebody, how do I make sure that they can execute?
Just make it. If you've seen mismatch between those, when you're hiring the talent, how do you then implement them into the systems, get them trained up on everything that you do and how you do it, and then make sure that you're holding them accountable throughout, the year?
So the big thing is the KPIs, is having just a handful of KPIs, key performance indicators that everybody is accountable for. So if I'm going to hire somebody like in the fence company, like we become a field ops coordinator, that's impossible for that is responsible for getting fence in the ground. So it's like, hey, your KPI is to get 10 jobs in a week or $50,000 of fence in the week or whatever it was, but having weekly KPIs that can be measured. And then we have a weekly meeting every Tuesday where we look at the scorecard for the previous week. And we take a look at, it's not only the past week, but the trailing 13 weeks. And every KPI has a goal. And if there's any KPI that is repeatedly red or repeatedly missing, that KPI is assigned to somebody, one person on the accountability chart. So then we kind of know who's held accountable. So I guess when I hire somebody in, like we talk about our system of EOS, we talk about what KPIs are, and then we actually hold people accountable to those KPIs. So that's one way I guess we hold them accountable is to the results that we see on the weekly scorecard. If it's less than weekly, we find out things too late. When we're doing like P&L reviews, it's a little bit too late. So that's how I kind of do that. And then we just do a people analyzer, which is a EOS tool. We do that every quarter on everybody. The first part of that is we align everybody with our 6 company core values to see if they're the right person for the company. And then the second part of that is we make sure that they get their seat, want their seat, and that's the capacity to do their seat, which is to make sure they're in the right seat. And we're just constantly making sure they're in the right person, the right seat, checked on a quarterly basis. I don't know if that answers your question, but
that's fantastic. It sounds like you're very disciplined. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. That's a big theme here at MAP. We talk about that too. You got to be disciplined in the business, and it sounds like you guys have that.
Well, yeah, and kind of with another, I'm thinking about that. So, like originally, how do we find out people problems? Right? It was when we started getting enough complaints about somebody, and I was tired of hearing about it, or I would get an email with like the subject line of "a few concerns." ... It's like, oh boy, and then it'd be a laundry list of different things. So a lot of that is like reactionary. So then, whenever I do want to talk with somebody, it's like, oh no, we're pulling them in the back for the talk. But now when you schedule out all of the performance reviews, the people analyzers, whatever you want to call them, hey, the first month of every quarter, we're going to sit down, we're going to align every single body with the core values and to see if they GWC their seat. It's known, it's expected. And then it just becomes a lot easier to smoke out any kind of issues because like I have to do this once a quarter with everybody that I lead, manage, and hold accountable. And they know that, so it's expecting. So the system just kind of works for itself, but then you kind of force those issues to the top rather than having that to be something you have to schedule. Like, oh man, I've heard so many things about so-and-so that now I need to schedule a one-on-one with them to see what's going on. Like, that's just like a lot of mental brain work to do that. But when it's just part of your cadence, it's a lot easier to stay on top of that.
Walk us through the GWC, how that works.
So GWC, so the G stands for gets it. So basically, like whenever we're looking at somebody, any given person in a seat, right? So you have a seat in the accountability chart with a bunch of KPIs, responsibilities, things you're accountable for. So G is, do you get it? Which means, do you get your seat? Do you get what you're accountable for? Do you understand whatever it is that you're overseeing? So if you're like a head of marketing, like, do you get marketing? Do you get how to do stuff on Google and meta marketing. So G is just, do you get it? W is, do you want it? Do you actually want to be in the seat? Are you energized by being in the seat? Are you you thriving being in the seat? And then C is, do you have the capacity to do that? So if you get it, like, you know what needs to be done, you want it, can you actually do it? Do you have enough time capacity, emotional capacity, intellectual capacity, physical capacity? But do you actually have the capacity to execute the demands that seat requires? So with each one of those, we rate people a Y for yes or an N for no. And someone's considered in the right seat if they're a yes for each one. If they're a no for either one of those, then that means they're in the wrong seat. And then if they align with our core values, it means they are still the right person for the company. So if possible, we'll find another seat for them. But if we can't find another seat, then at the end of the day, they have to leave the company. We're to kind of part ways.
And how does like their performance come in? Like what part of that is like, hey, this is how they've done over the last 90 days on their goals or what they're measured on? Is that part of capacity?
Yeah, so I would say if somebody GWCs their seat, then that means their KPIs should be hitting.
Okay.
Unless there's a major economic like COVID or something kind of crazy like that, right? But just in general, if their KPIs are red, then that either means they don't get their position, they don't want their position, or they don't have the capacity to do it. Because if they did, they would, either they would be green or the KPI goals are just too unrealistic, and then that could be the issue. But for the most part, though, it's just if your KPIs are green, then most likely you GWC your seat. It's not quite as simple as that, but that's a good starting point.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And that's run on what cadence?
A quarterly basis.
Quarterly. Okay.
Yep.
That's great. That might be the takeaway. We always ask guests on the show, is there something unique, something you do that's helpful for your business that others listening might be able to take back and adopt into theirs? That might be a good one. Is there anything else that comes to mind?
I mean, that goes hand in hand with the accountability chart for sure. Just having a clear accountability chart with what everyone's accountable for. I used to for years, I didn't have an accountability chart because I'm just like, we get it. And it's like, we really don't. I mean, actually writing it down, it sounds elementary potentially, but it's game changing. But having the accountability chart, KPIs, and then just being committed to actually following them. And it doesn't matter how hard people work. It is about the results they deliver. And really buying into that and not being afraid to tell somebody they're in the wrong seat. It doesn't matter if they're working 60 hours a week and they're putting their heart and soul into it. It's like, if you're not getting the results, you're not in the right seat. And if you were in the right seat, then it wouldn't be such a grueling thing. So yeah, I mean, probably I would say the accountability chart and then the people analyzer. And again, to make sure I'm not stealing credit, all of this is from EOS. I didn't come up with any of this stuff. I'm just executing upon it. But that's been very game changing for us.
Yeah.
Love that. Looking ahead, what are some goals that you guys are working on or chasing?
Well, for our retail companies, our 10-year target, the BHAG, as you mentioned earlier, it's to create a team of 1,000 people who love working for those two brands, which currently the headcount for those two brands is at 200, a little over 250 people. So we wanted a 10-year target that was really employee centric, and it wasn't just about some shareholders making a bunch of money out here. We really wanted it to be on the ground level. So that's our big one there. For us to do that, we're gonna have to, I think, get to 90 some stores across the Midwest of the country. So we have, and we're currently at 17. So within that brand, so we got a lot of growing there. So yeah, I'd probably say that's the big one. That's probably the big one. I mean, I have some other goals and everything like that, but that's the big one that we're chasing right now. Yep.
Yeah, I love it when companies can take their BHAG and I think the proper way to do is what you just said. You make it about something. You link it to the purpose of the company, not revenue. And I'm sure this is linked to the 1,000 employees. Is the way you talk about your employees is pretty awesome. And if you can get 1,000 employees that are in harmony with the right energy in the right seat, it's pretty amazing.
Yep. Yeah, because then everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah, no, I like to say people define the performance capacity of an organization.
Yes.
So that's the bottom line.
Yes.
Speaking of that, so we were talking before the show about one of our clients who, scaled a lot. He was in a home service business. And as they were sort of kicking into that second level of growth, they identified that they had an issue with training their people, right? Getting them trained up on whether being leaders or just the systems and the process they had. So they created their own university internally. As you're growing, you're very dialed in with your systems and your process and how you do things. How do you go about bringing people on, training them, and like getting them fully up to speed with everything you're doing?
That's a good question. So, I mean, we use a platform called Trainual. I mean, for like the specific nuts and bolts answer, that's what we're creating right now. We have a Trainual thing that people go through. And we actually, so one of my rocks, which is a quarterly goal in the EOS world, was to create an outline for a university for our team. Since our 10-year target is to have 1,000 people who love working for us. And since I really love teaching the soft skills, such as how to deal with difficult conversations and how to manage teams and how to listen to others, how to deal with uncertainty, that's like my happy place is helping people understand that. So we are creating kind of our own university in-house as well for our team members as well. But right now, though, I mean, for the training, it's really Trainual, the system that we built out there, and kind of following the EOS playbook and how to train with 20% of the steps for 80% of the results. So a lot of companies, and what we used to do, we had like a 350-page SOP manual, right, with every different possible permutation of if-then statements and things like that. And one of the things that our EOS implementer, Dave, said is like, you're not building a training manual for dummies. You're building a training manual for people who GWC their seat, for the right people, the right seat. So keep it nimble, just give them 20% of the steps for 80% of the results. And then if you have the right people in the right seats, they'll take it from there and they'll like that. So we've kind of have revamped our training to have it be a lot more nimble and agile and quick like that, with the thing for just giving 20% of the steps rather than every single detail.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Trainual is a great platform. They're one of our partners. They have their tech is great.
Yes, it's very nice.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome, man. Nick, we appreciate your time. Before we jump, where can people go to learn more about you, connect with you, see your writing or your businesses?
Yeah. So, I mean, LinkedIn's probably the best. I do have a website, nickleja.com. It's a bit outdated, but nickleja.com. And then on Amazon, if you just search for me, or if you go to my LinkedIn page, that'll have a list of all of my books. So I've got 3 of them, and then I'm publishing my 4th one next month.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right.
That's so cool.
Well, I've enjoyed this, man. You've run a great business, and it sounds like your systems, your process, your discipline. It's impressive. So thank you for sharing your time with us. We really appreciate it. It was great getting to know you.
Awesome.
Mike, anything before we jump?
Thanks for all the questions.
Absolutely.
My mind is spinning. That last thing you just said, we're a big believer in the Pareto principle, 20% to get 80%. And like, even when I think about our management training, because part of our business, I think, is we take managers, turn them into high performance leaders by teaching them the 20%, the fundamentals of management or leadership that create 80% of the results. And so, anyways, we'll get you a link. We put some of that training into we have some of that in Trainual right now. We'll have to send you a link to take a look at. Super brief stuff.
We have some of the playbooks. Yeah. Cool.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you again. We appreciate it. And everybody for listening, thank you for spending your time with us. And we will see you next time.